Okay, so my name's Melissa Bradley. I'm the Program Manager for Water Sensitive SA. Welcome today. I wanted to acknowledge that today I meet you from the lands of the Paramount people in the Adelaide Hills. Also joined by Ian Adams, who's Director of Organic Engineering, who'll be my co-presenter today, and he'll be doing the bulk of the work, the hard yards, showing you the ins and outs of the InSite Water tool. By way of a bit of an overview today, I'm going to be just taking you through the stormwater and related greening policies within the Planning and Design Code as a bit of a precursor to how the stormwater InSite tool has been set up to make sure that it aligns completely with the code, so that if you are a user of the InSite Water tool, you know that you are consistent with the current Planning and Design Code. And Ian's going to take you through an introduction to InSite Water and how you can apply it to stormwater assessment for small-scale development. He's also going to take you through some common case studies, worked examples using InSite Water. He's alerted me to the fact that he's going to do a bit more work on the detention side of InSite Water in this session. If you've been to one of these before, that'll be a bit of a new part that we may not have delved into in previous sessions. So if you're an engineer wanting to know how the detention part of InSite Water works, Ian's going to take you through that. And then he'll also just take you through how you can get self-certification in InSite Water. In terms of like the overall objectives in the code, there are so many policies around flood risk, protecting the integrity of urban streams and the health of waterways, providing an amenity through greening. That's probably the difference between the existing development plans and the current code, is there is a greater emphasis on bringing the water and the landscape together. Sustaining green spaces through alternative water and passive irrigation is another part of the code that you'll see is different to the old development plans. And there is some policy around microclimate, reducing urban heat island effect. So there's the similarities and differences, and I'll just go through them in a little bit more detail. So in terms of what's in the code for small-scale developments, they're virtually two approval pathways. There's the deemed to satisfy pathway, and there's a sort of a merit, or the old merit assess, but it's performance-based assessment under the new language. So part 3 of the code, I'm not going to go to in any real detail other than to say that there's a series of overlays, a stormwater management overlay and an urban tree canopy overlay in part 3 of the code, and that goes through minimum landscape requirements, 1 tree per lot. And combined retention to tank sizes depending on your lot size and permeability site coverage. What we're more concerned about today is when you've got a scenario that is, you don't want to use the deemed to satisfy solution, you want to have your own bespoke solution. How can you, what's in the code to enable that? And then Ian will later show you how InSite Water can help you meet those requirements and prove that you still meet the stormwater requirements in line with the code. So I'm just going to take you through parts of part 4 of the code around the design in urban areas, and particularly focusing on the stormwater management, water sensitive urban design, and the green space. This is predominantly for 5 or more lots on a development, but you could use these policies on up to 4 lots as well if you don't want to go down the deemed to satisfy pathway via part 3 of the code. So performance assessed, compliance pathways. I've mentioned stormwater management. There are policies around runoff quality, peak flow management, runoff volume. There's also policies around water use efficiency and the integrated solutions. In terms of the green infrastructure that I'll just touch on, because I would like to be holistic about this, there's minimum landscape areas, deep soil zones, minimum tree plantings, and maximum driveway crossover widths to protect the green space on verges from encroachment of hard surfaces. This idea of the soft landscape areas and the stormwater coming together, both the design in urban areas and the design policies, and just to be clear, the design policies mostly apply to outer metro areas, and design in urban areas is mostly Metro Adelaide, but does cross over into some sort of more large growth areas. So there's performance outcomes around how to integrate landscaping and stormwater, and you'll see that it's really encouraging us to provide for stormwater infiltration. No deemed to satisfy solutions are provided, but what we would recommend is using a permeable paving material or a porous material on your driveways, and also referring to the ministerial building standard. Used to be the old minister spec on on-site retention of stormwater to help people looking at infiltration system design. The InSite Water tool, as you'll see later with Ian, can help you design your infiltration systems for small-scale infill residential development and commercial development. Another performance outcome, when we've got very common to have battle axe blocks or common driveways in these small-scale infill developments, one deemed to satisfy pathway is a 50% minimum porous or permeable material and a 1 metre strip of landscaping along the driveway. So that is one way that you can meet that performance outcome. It's not the only way, it is just one way, and that's how the deemed to satisfy works. And just being mindful that if we're choosing these permeable or porous paving options, it can enable us to do away with underground detention storages if it's used in conjunction with roof harvesting and reuse, and reduce your requirements for pits and pipes. So we do get a bit of people saying, well, it's going to cost us more, but it is actually going to reduce some of your needs for other related infrastructure. So be sure that we keep that discussion in balance. Also provides passive irrigation for your surrounding landscapes. There's in 7.4 to 7.6 within the design in urban areas, there's a lot of policies around this sort of car parking amenity and connection of stormwater to landscape. Several policies around permeable paving, infiltration, encouraging swales and rain gardens. There are no deemed to satisfy solutions in the code, but I'm just showing you this example that was provided to us by Andrew King from City of West Torrens. This car park that was as above ground car park managed to do away with the underground detention that was originally proposed, switched to a detention storage in the car park itself, with a lot of the stormwater infiltrating through the permeable paving in the parking bays and then soaking through the adjacent landscape areas. So no pumps, no excavations, an alternative design that is actually working for that developer. Some basic policies around performance outcomes around landscaped areas. There is a deemed to satisfy that says, if you've got an open car park of 10 or more, we want one tree per 10 car parking spaces. If you integrate water sensitive urban design into your design, you can sustain far more trees than that. To me, that's a very low bar. And with good design, with good integrated water sensitive urban design, car parks can flow their water straight to a landscape area and actually achieve a much better canopy outcome than that requirement. There's some examples around you might want to look at. City of Mitcham St Mary's car park, top right, has permeable and porous paving solutions and demonstrations that worth having a look at if you have never built a porous asphalt car park or similar, or road, and there's a permeable paving right next door to it. The other example down the bottom is Fig Plaza at Adelaide Oval. All the water drains to a central landscape area that is connected underneath with permeable pipes, and all water soaks to this area and keeps those trees looking green. They did have supplementary watering in establishment, but no longer need it. As you can see how healthy those trees are after 1 year. So again, trying to encourage your stormwater and your landscape to be integrated and having really great amenity outcomes. Just more around the policies. There are policies around water harvesting, green roofs and green walls. No deemed to satisfy solutions provided, but we are trying to encourage these types of solutions. Now, with the pollution reduction and pollutant policies, there are policies in the out of urban areas on grease, pollutant reduction and no visible grease. It was removed from the design urban areas, not sure why, but council will have their own engineering requirements. So even if you don't have it in your area that your policies that the code says, it is quite likely that council will require those as an engineering requirement, even if the code does not state it, particularly in commercial areas. Just one other thing, we're also trying to look at this managing our hydrological impacts, and you'll look at see the solutions that Ian shows you will be a way of getting our system back into balance, and he'll explain that. Just one thing, when you're doing a permeable car park, to avoid clogging, you may want to have no more than a ratio of 4:1 from impervious to permeable. That was a tip from the Concrete Masonry Association at a recent event of ours. So that's purely from a clogging point of view. With the pollution reduction targets for suspended solids, phosphorus and nitrogen, again, they are in the design section of the code, so your outer metro areas. Again, they were originally in the design urban areas. However, council is likely to require them. So they're either in the code as a deemed to satisfy solution, or they're likely to be a council engineering requirement. A compliance pathway, one way is obviously music modelling, for those who are familiar with that. If it is a smaller scale development, that's when the InSite Water could be another compliance pathway. So again, Ian will take you through how you can use InSite Water to demonstrate compliance for those smaller developments that don't require a full music model. There are also policies in the code around managing peak flows. They've been there for years. There are some deemed to satisfy solutions, again, in the outer metro around peak flow and design storms. There are also policies that encourage a volume management approach, and Ian can show you how you can use InSite Water to take a volume management approach. And then also the design storm will vary from council to council, and Ian will show you how you can use InSite Water to pick your design storm to test the performance of your design in InSite Water. So again, you might want your compliance pathway might be your site stormwater management plan using your preferred model, as you've always done, or self-certification with the InSite Water tool if no public road has been created in conjunction with that development, and Ian will go through that in a bit more detail. I thought it'd be remiss of me not to just mention that there are requirements around hazards for rainwater storage, even though that's not what we're going to be covering today, just for completeness. And then really just a couple of slides on the minimum landscape requirements. Really good to just be mindful of this. Again, as many of you would be engineers, you're designing car parks, you're designing driveways, and really just being mindful of these minimum requirements around soft landscaping and what is deemed to be the minimum standard if you're taking a deemed to satisfy solution approach. Just got an example here of Orphanage Park in Goodwood, used to flood regularly. It has now just everything now drains into a central infiltration system in the centre of the car park that has since been vegetated since these photos. So just being mindful that the grade and how you integrate landscape can make massive differences to not only stormwater performance, but also amenity and function of the space. Just a few final slides. The policies around driveway access widths. If you've got a 10 metre or less driveway, allotment, you will need to limit the width of your driveway crossover. So the days of having a double crossover to a double garage on smaller lots are over. So just being mindful of that when you're doing your designs. And then also just the requirements around deep soil zones, and really just the minimum sizing 4x4 from a deemed to satisfy solution approach. 4 metres by 4 metres to get your deep soil zone to establish a canopy. And when we say deep soil zone, that means everything's clear above the tree and there are no surface obstructions below the tree. And there's some requirements around that in terms of giving you indications of minimum deep soil areas and dimensions and different trees, mature height spreads that should go in those